Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer. He's on the East Coast, and we've got 9 games here on Wednesday in the NBA. We've got best bets with some looks at sides and totals for the night here in this episode. Also going to bring you the player props episode we have for you each and every weekday, so make sure to subscribe to that page. Don't miss any of the action we're bringing you each and every weekday this season. Also want to let you guys know about the thelines.com email newsletter that we've got going. Plenty of great stuff in there where we're keeping you updated with everything on thelines.com. Plus, we are dropping an NBA bonus pick here from Nate and myself that you're not going to find anywhere else, not even on the show. Just going to be dropping that special pick there that we're going to be looking at, collaborating on that one together and getting it out to you guys a little bit early in that newsletter. And that comes out every Friday. So make sure you go ahead and hit the link in the description of the video. Sign up today. Don't miss any of the action and that bonus pick that we have for you. So, Nate, let's go ahead and jump right into your first look here for Wednesday night.
Yeah, Celtics -4, now up to 4.5 at Detroit. But, I mean, stick around for the second pick, and you'll see a way to get this number down a little bit and still get even money or plus odds. But, I mean, for the Celtics, like, I know Porzingis might not go here, but it might have also been like they just scratched him at the last minute because they're like, we're not worried about Toronto. We're going to save him. They outright saved Drew Holiday for this matchup, and that is essential because in 8 career games against Drew, Cade Cunningham, 18.5 points, 91 offensive rating. In the last 3 when he's been on Boston, a little bit better because, I mean, Cade has turned into a budding superstar. Still 98 offensive rating, 5.3 turnovers, only 2 free throw attempts a game. So he's getting the clamps. He's getting the clamps tonight. I mean, which doesn't necessarily mean he's going to get held below 20, but he's not going to go for a 32-point triple-double like he's been doing routinely here during this 7-game win streak for the Pistons. And not to sneeze at it completely, but, I mean, it's like, welcome to the show, kids. It's like, the thing about being on a hot streak when you face the Boston Celtics is now you have their attention. And when you've had the Celtics' attention recently, as they've kind of hit this next gear to be like, all right, let's get into championship defense mode, you've gotten absolutely smacked. I mean, let's think about the Knicks and the Cavs in their last 3 meetings. Like nowhere close. They've won 8 straight against the Eastern Conference, have the Celtics covered in 6, total margin plus 64 against the spread. They have handled this Detroit team, of course, because they used to be a doormat. But, I mean, the last 5 against Detroit, just look at this Detroit defense getting smoked. 125 a game, 23s at 42%. And that's the key here is Detroit is a bottom 10 3-point defense. They're bottom 6, actually, during this win streak at home. The only teams below them, the Knicks and Sixers, who, hello, Boston and 6 versus the Knicks and Sixers, 44%, 22 threes a game this year, 131 offensive rating. So yeah, they're about to light them up. I mean, maybe again, 1 or 2 guys play fewer minutes because it's a back-to-back, or maybe Porzingis doesn't go. I think the Celtics still, with their depth of talent, with their cohesion, like they just have more weapons to come at Detroit with. And Detroit is really centered around one dude who has a really hard time scoring on Drew Holiday, which is, fair, like a lot of people do. But if you take Cade out or even diminish him a little bit, like I just don't see how Detroit can hang with this with the champs.
Yeah, they should. I mean, the thing that Detroit has going for them is the 3-point defense above all else, which has fluctuated at times this season. But when it's been good, it's really good. Does it matter, right? Like against the Celtics this season, I don't think it matters for anybody in the East. If the Celtics decide that they're coming with it, then they're probably gonna lay the smackdown. I mean, 3-point variance be damned. Even this season now, when you have Kristaps out there, the defense down low is absolutely incredible. But to your point, this is more important that the defense up high is incredible because Jalen Duren ain't going to win you a game. He'll just be a nice piece playing off of Cade. And if Cade ain't getting into the lane with the ease that he has at times this season, because of a guy like Drew Holiday, who I think we fully expect to play and only missed because of this exact game. They don't want Drew playing back-to-backs. They don't really want Al playing back-to-backs. So it makes sense that if Kristaps can go at all, and probably could have gone yesterday, that he would be a go tonight and Al would be the scratch. And I think that's totally fine. And that just helps that down low defense even more. So I'm with you. I think it's small enough. I love Detroit. Notice nothing I said in there was like negativity towards Detroit. Just going to give the champs their flowers in this pretty big matchup here in the East. So let me go to a not so big matchup in cross conference meetings, but pretty big if you want to lose if you're Washington and win if you're Portland. Portland's -6, and I'm going to take the faves here on the road against Washington. A little Denny Avdija on the revenge narrative there. I don't know. He's a really nice guy. I don't think Avdija gives a shit, but he did have some tough times in Washington. He was like the player you want in Washington, by the way. Good attitude, tried to lead the team, the opposite of Kyle Kuzma. But anyway, let's look at why this is such a big disparity between these two teams. Like, I think that this should just be basically a close to double-digit spread. Like, I think this should be 9.5 is where I start when I look at the way that I rate all these players and the value that they bring. The thing for Portland is going to be crashing, just crash, just get to the rim a lot. They've been doing that a ton, especially, I mean, on the season as a whole, they're top 3 in terms of rim frequency. So this is their game plan. But they've also just upped that to being second best over the last 10, over the last 5. And it's Washington. So, like, if you want me to go through the stats of how bad they are at the rim, I can. They're 30th in pretty much every relevant category that comes to limiting points to guys driving to the hoop and finishing inside of 5 feet. They can't do it. They can't do it well. They don't do it at all. The Portland Trailblazers, they do take some threes. I believe on the season, as far as the 3-point attempts go, they're about middle of the pack, like 18th or so in terms of the percentage of their shots that they're taking from 3. So it's a pretty even mix here. You could get both, though. Like, if you want to give Washington one area of the floor that they've been not horrible, it's above the break 3-pointers, but the Portland really hasn't been focusing on that very much. It's really just Anthony Simons and a little bit of Jeremy Grant at this point, taking those sort of pull up or even spot up threes out there. There's a lot more, like I said, athletes driving to the rim with the Toumani Kamaras and the Denny Avdias of the world that are both getting about 35 to 38 minutes now. After Denny kind of had a little bit of a down stretch, definitely coming back, like him a lot in this game as a big reason for this stuff. If you look at Washington, they've played okay against some pretty bad comp at times over the course of the last like 10 games or so. They've actually had a really easy schedule over the last 5, and that's helped them look a little bit better, but they're still 26th in net rating, and it across the board, like I said, 30th in rim defense. But if you're looking at what you could expect from them on offense, it's really just going to be a lot more of Jordan Poole, and then like a lot of threes, just a lot of threes, a lot of Jordan Poole, a lot of threes. And they are pretty good when they get into the paint, but they don't go into the paint. They don't really even have that sort of tweener guy that you believe in, like going to the bucket. It's a lot of like Bub Carrington, Jordan Poole, and then Keyshawn George at this point, and Alex Sarr is questionable. So like, I just don't know how they're going to hang on scoring wise. Like, you were talking about an under in this game, and I totally like that. I totally do agree that this game is more likely to go under. I just think like this is the team that's going to go under for sure would be the Wizards in this situation, and Portland could score enough points against this poo-poo defense to bring it over. So I just like them to cover anything less than a double-digit spread in this game.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I didn't stick with the under is because Portland had been playing a little bit faster lately and getting more threes up. And Washington, of course, is capable of just completely laying an egg defensively and snapping their nice little stretch here, though, where they have been playing well defensively, playing slower, but 233.5, which is what the total's up to now at DraftKings. That's too high for a Blazers game. I mean, basically, unless they play the Nuggets or like go to overtime with the Suns, like they're not going over that for like the last couple weeks. And yeah, like you said, Wizards hoisting a lot of threes, and Portland's been like the top 3-point defense in the last month. So I don't really see how they have one of those 120-ish games that the Wizards sometimes play. But Led, looking at my second pick here, this is just how I bet the Celtics personally tonight, which is move them down to -1.5 with OKC at -9.5. And I think you can feel totally confident taking OKC 3, 4, 5 points higher than that, -19.5 if you want in Brooklyn, because they're going to be pissed, man. They just blew a game that no team of their stature has ever blown, according to the specific scenario, at home. Had some time now, and now they go to a hapless Brooklyn team that is already indicating on the injury report, like, we don't want no part of this. Like, yeah, basta. Cam Johnson questionable, D'Lo out, Claxton suspended, Clowney's out. Thunder is listing nobody on the injury report, nobody of note. So yeah, you're about to get the full elbow here. It's up to -17.5, and if you just take the normal spread with this Boston adjusted line, I think you're at 2-1 with your money there. And I mean, I just don't see how this is not a 20-point win. These teams are both, the top 3 teams in the NBA, winning on the road. Both win by an average of 10 on the road. Cover the Celtics, obviously. OKC hasn't lost a back-to-back game since November. And their last five since the NBA Cup hiccup, they've been winning by 19 a game. They've gone over this team total in all five. That includes dropping 127 on the Nets, who play slower than anybody and had been playing good defense, so they still ain't stopping you. OKC has beat up on bad teams. They're 19-2 against the East, winning by 16 a game.
That's insane.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple for me. It's just like OKC is going to take their frustration out. I don't know if they're going to do it totally with offense or holding Brooklyn to like an embarrassing 67-point total, but they are going to crush this team.
It's funny. It's like almost like frustratingly easy to cap OKC to dominate a team like Brooklyn. It's like what I'm saying with Washington. We both just go like, "What do you want from me?" They're playing Washington. It's like almost the cap. I'm also reminded forcibly of Rush Hour when Jackie Chan is like, "I don't want trouble. I don't want trouble," and he's trying to avoid a fight. That's the Nets sitting Claxton and Cloudy and everybody else. And don't just jump on Day'Ron Sharpe in this game. I don't think he's got really high props. I went to look at Day'Ron being like, well, he's the only center left, and he's done well without these guys. I'm not trying to mess with that in this game in any way, shape, or form. So yeah, I mean, if there were props up for like the third stringers on OKC, it might take a couple over 5.5 points for some of those guys. But let's go to Houston. I think Houston's in the same boat. I think they want to lay a smackdown here as well on San Antonio in a division rivalry, but I just don't think San Antonio's got it anymore, man. So I'm going to take them to cover 9. The Pelicans were down 53-40 at the half against the Spurs and won and covered this. So do with that what you will. I do think Fred is back. You think they really need Fred to win this game by 9, and I don't fully agree. I would love to have Fred back because I think one of the more interesting things that you pointed out yesterday, talking about the Rockets, is that Fred actually helps their defense, and that because he's the adult in the room, it's not his individual on-ball defense that's helping anybody. I'll tell you that. It's just the fact that he's sort of corralling these guys and organizing things on both sides of the floor the way that nobody else does, because Şengün ain't really even doing that from the center position. But this is going to be a pretty big cap on how bad the Spurs are, man. The last 2 games that I watched against the Pelicans told me everything that I need to know. This team is relying on De'Aaron Fox taking pull-ups at this point. That's their offense. So we're getting like the Kings from pre Tyrese Halliburton drafted, like that type of Kings. If you remember when D Fox was just out there shooting the ball 22 times a game and is not the 3-point shooter to take that amount of volume that you believe in. I do think that, he could have a little bit of ease getting once he got to the rim at finishing, but I don't think he can even get to the rim. You saw Villain Brooks yesterday, totally healthy, played his full slate of minutes, full load there. So he'll get that De'Aaron Fox look, and maybe Fox goes with the points a little bit, but ain't nobody else scoring because this assist percentage for this team is awful in the last, basically since they lost Wemby. They are bottom in the league in assist percentage. Chris Paul helping that actually, which is interesting. He's still diving up a ton, but De'Aaron Fox has got about 30% is the field goal percentage that guys are shooting on his passes. So he's leaving about 8 potential assists out there every game now because nobody's shooting well. I mean, Devin Vassell found it a little bit in this last game, but everything was predicated on in and out or Wemby drawing 2 guys onto him wherever he is on the floor. It's just not going to be that way anymore. So I just don't think they have the offense to hang with a team anymore. And Houston, been a defensive juggernaut all season. Their offensive rating has dipped tremendously without Fred in the last 3 games. So it's another point that you make about Fred's importance. At the same time, we also have a little bit of weirdness because Jabari Smith missed a couple of those games. Tari Eason missed a couple of those games. And so there's been other guys out there that have kind of kept them from being as good, especially on defense, but being able to get there on offense as well, where they've been 19th in offensive rating over their last 10. But the thing that they're still doing really well on offense is crashing, and they're still getting down low. They're still getting into the paint with consistency. They have at least to the rim as well. They're in the top 10 in both paint and rim frequency in the last 10 games, and on the season now still doing really well in that paint frequency top 10. So they're getting into the lane. The Spurs, and I don't know if I talked about this the other day, but the Spurs cannot guard you down low. They were already maybe the worst defense down low with Wemby. They are now the worst defense down low. We've now seen, the worst team in the league is giving up 36 field goal attempts inside 5 feet. That would be the Wizards. They are giving up 42 attempts from inside 5 feet over there since Wemby went down. Detroit scored 48 points, not even in the paint at the rim. They scored like 65 points in the paint. So like that's what I'm expecting here once again. Guys like Amin Thompson, Tari Eason, Jabari Smith to just live in the paint and jump over everybody, etc. That's going to be the biggest problem for the Spurs. I just don't trust this. I didn't trust this defense. I trust it even less now. And also on offense, man, if they're not hitting threes and they don't have the 3-point shooters, they're done. They're just going to be trading twos for threes as much as they can because they can't hit a three anymore without that inside out game from our guy Wemby, and he was shooting about 8 or 9 of them a game, which helped them too. So yeah, there's a lot of holes that this team is not trying to fix. Even I think they're just punting for next season anyway.
Yeah, I could see it. I mean, you'd be stopping a trend here, which is 17 straight games for the Houston Rockets that they have not won by double digits or won most of those games because they have struggled without Fred VanVleet and they have not played well at all down the stretch. So even when they're up, they're letting the other team back in it. When they're down, they're clawing back. Like we saw with that Bucks game last night, it just turned into an absolute rock fight down the stretch. So while, I mean, I think the Spurs offense, they could struggle on both ends. Like I don't really trust Houston's offense to close without Fred VanVleet. That's basically where I'm at with them is like, I don't think they have that kind of ruthless efficiency. I mean, if you're terrible in transition and you can't guard the rim, yeah, maybe they get out and they just use their athleticism to pull away here. But with both teams on a back-to-back, it is kind of a stay away for me in terms of the spread.
I can feel that, and that is what I'm banking on is the runaway for Houston going to the rim and in transition as well, crashing the offensive boards, getting second chance points like that. Those are the ways that I see them really getting this thing and elevating it to double digits. Because yeah, maybe in a half court offense, even against a poo defense like the Spurs, you don't trust them quite as much. Things get stagnant. I think they're going to bring it enough that they're just going to keep running and run this team out the gym and do it that way.
But another -9 to look at here, if you guys are also scared of the Rockets, is the Clippers at the Bulls, right? I mean, Bulls might be getting a little bit of love here after smacking the Sixers and getting this spread down a little bit, but they ain't playing for anything. And the Clippers routinely cover big spreads when they're favored by, and it's for good reason, right?
Norm is out is the thing too, but like, yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit more too in player props. So that's all the time we have for you in best bets. Definitely make sure to subscribe to that page, continue to follow along. Also make sure you do check out that newsletter email so you don't miss any of the action happening on thelines.com this season. And until we see you next, happy betting.